Hello everyone, my name is Leandro. I work as engineer manager at GetYourGuide here in Berlin. I've been living here in Berlin for 3 years, and during these 3 years I interviewed more than 100 people. I've been working with technology for almost 20 years. I started in 2000 on e-commerce in Brazil, and since then I've been developing my engineering skills and now on a different track, which is as a manager. And as I said, I started my career in Brazil as a developer, where I learned new technologies. I started with PHP 3, and since then PHP 4, 5, and now 7. There, it's a completely different market. Even at that time, 2001 to 2007 was a different moment. We didn't have any startups yet. We are like more the dot-com boom. And there in Brazil, I was close to the community. Mainly, I'm from the north of Brazil, and there I was like managing a meetup group where we talk about different technologies for web technologies. At that time, front end and back end were not separated, so you're a web developer, so you needed to manage front end, JavaScript, CSS, HTML, and also a back end language, in this case PHP. Also at that time, I played a little bit with ASP, which is like the first version of Microsoft for web on top of VBasecamp. And that's a little bit about me. After 10 years working in the north of Brazil, I decided to move to São Paulo in the south of Brazil. Was the first time. It was an internal move, so for me it was very challenging. The first time I was living alone. That time I was single, so it was a completely different experience for me. It's exactly where I started like my financial independence, and it was exactly at the same time we start having startups around the world, 2007, 2008, and there I worked in a company for 3 years, but after that I moved to a fantastic startup in Brazil where I worked there for 5-6 years, and it's where I started as a senior developer, and I started going to a tech lead position in Brazil. Since it was a small startup, we built a platform for marketing called Site Apps. It was a behavior targeting tool, so it allows us to create different audiences in the website. And there I started having a different passion, which is entrepreneurship and developing a product. So I tried to combine my both engineering product skills. And after working 5 years, I could, since it was an international startup, even in Brazil, I could start speaking English. And for me, it was like a very, very good chance to learn about startups. After 5-6 years, we basically we were focused on the long tail. But since the company changed the strategy a bit, we decided to shut down the startup and focus on different projects in the company. The company was not just that startup. The startup was a project that inside the company, so we focused on the corporate and shorthead. It was exactly at this time that I decided I want to try something different. I already had that experience in São Paulo with its startup scene, so I make myself stronger. In the sense that I learned English, I was more confident about my English, and I decided to have an international experience. I was like trying to choose different countries for that experience, and I decided that Berlin would be the best place for me. Why? The visa is easier. The city has a very good life balance. I wouldn't like to move to another crowded city like São Paulo, where you have traffic jams, and if you don't take care of yourself, the life quality balance would be not as amazing as in another city like Berlin. So Berlin is fantastic during summer. We have very good public transports, and it's a new startup scene also all around the world. So I decided to, I had some connections that I could do some interview process, and yeah, I came here for my first company as a senior software developer. I back to Brazil. In that company I was almost playing as a CTO. I was taking care of product, entrepreneurship aspects, and also technical aspects, and leading the team. And I was afraid, to be honest, to continue that role outside. So I decided to go as a senior software engineer. Also because the last 2 years in that company I was a little bit far from technology, and you know that technology changes a lot, and I decided to move for Berlin as a senior software developer. There, in this startup that I was like in a team of 4 people. We didn't have a manager, so as the most experienced, I started like somehow being also the manager. We are like hiring a product manager, so I was also trying to make the product together with engineering. So after 3 months there, I became a tech lead. It was more a natural transition because it's how I was working in the company. And yes, after 2 years working there, I became a technical lead at that company. And the technical lead at that company, it was 75% technical aspects, architectural decisions, and 25% managing people. So I started after 2 years looking for different challenges because I'd like to improve my soft skills managing people. And as a senior software engineer, have two paths to go. One is more managing people, strategy, product, and it's also technology in a lower scale. And you can also go to a technical path, which is 75% technology, and of course you need to have soft skills to lead and have good communication with your team members. But I decided to change, and I moved to GetYourGuide to work as engineer manager. Here in Europe, engineer managers, although you have both technical and people management and strategy path, I decided to also try to learn new things. I personally believe that as human beings, we need to challenge all the time ourselves, and it was completely out of my comfort zone leading people. But for me at least, this is how I learn. It's where I put myself in situations that I don't like or make me out of my comfort zone, but I have to be very, very open to face those challenges. It's not easy. Most of the times you can have some defeats, you can failure, but the most interesting thing is how can you get up and learn from that failures. And this is exactly how you grow. And yeah, this is me, a little bit about my experience here in Berlin, and looking forward to share more about that. Thanks.